I was home. It was like a memory. It was like amnesia wearing off. And I don't know how long, and it wasn't just this lifetime that I had forgotten. I had the impression, subtly, that I had forgotten over lifetimes who I was and what I was supposed to be doing. And I remembered at that moment. And that started my journey. So now, since I've been practicing yoga and meditation and different things for a certain amount of years, I wrote down today, as I was thinking about speaking with all of you today, 4 universal truths that I came across on my path. And I'm sure we can shorten them or lengthen them depending on what we want to talk about. But for my purposes today, the first universal truth that I came to was that my life reflected my lifestyle. So I realized everything I do has to shift. The way I eat had to shift. What I watched on TV, if I was going to watch TV too much anymore, had to shift. The music I was listening to, the books that I was reading, I had to change my lifestyle. I had to change my habits. And we're all creatures of habit. And that was the first one. And that's when I started doing yoga. And that's when I started meditating. That's when I started chanting. And I wanted to take a moment to speak about chanting. And to, before I forget, invite everyone here on 11/11, November 11th, a great American chanter. He's a kirtanwala. He chants mantras. Krishna Das. Some of you may know Krishna Das. He's going to be performing in New York City in a church. It's an amazing experience. I already have a big group of people who are going. So I extend the invitation to you. If we all see each other, meet up there. It'll be awesome. We'll meditate and pray together and praise together. But the power of chanting. If you had any background in science, in physics, anything at all, or even just singing, everything is vibration. And when we chant, those specific words, those names of gods that we chant, that vibration connects us to that aspect of God. And what I found was that when I chant, because it's a sound and it's in my head and outward, if I chant out loud, it wipes away all the other nonsense, all the other noise disappears for a little while. And it puts me into a really great heart space. And I find it to be the perfect preparation for meditation. Because if your mind is really, really running about, it's tough to meditate. So that's why they say don't meditate then, do yoga first. Right, do something, spirit in motion. And then once you relax, then you can try to meditate. I find chanting to be such a beautiful gift. So I would invite you all to try it. If you haven't, you can go to Pandora or Spotify, Krishna Das Radio. Listen to Krishna Das. It's a powerful, powerful tactic in this world. Second universal truth, after lifestyle, I learned that God communicates through synchronicities. So, what's a synchronicity? It's a God wink. It's a meaningful coincidence. And the most beautiful thing I've discovered is that the synchronicities will come faster and more intense the more you start looking for them. And particularly when you really, really need to see them. So, the drones are watching us. It is 9/11, so they're keeping an eye on us. Some very powerful synchronicities. How many of you have had experience with synchronicities? I know many of you here already, so I know that you've probably experienced something of that nature. All I could say is that you have to start being mindful of what you would normally call a coincidence. And it typically is a sign that you're on the right track or that you should shift what you're doing. Typically, you should call attention to whatever your actions are or whatever your train of thought is. And that God is really significantly communicating with us through these meaningful coincidences. In a little while, I'll share a few with you that I've had, particularly when I teach. The third universal truth I came across on my path is that reality is something I create through my own perception, through my own choice. So when I teach the Bhagavad Gita, I talk about this because the Gita quotes that reality flows out from us like dreams from a dreamer and like light from a bonfire. So what does that mean? So what happens to us, all the events of our life come through. Think of it as a wave of light, information. But your mind is like a prism through which the light passes and then refracts and creates an image of light. It could be a rainbow. Your perception is really what turns that light into something. And that what we think about the events of our lives are more important than the events themselves. Wayne Dyer, one of my favorite teachers who passed away last year, said that when you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at change. Huge, life-altering statement. I saw him do it on PBS in one of those 4-hour specials where he's trying to raise money for PBS. He was a great guy, did it for free. But that's why I think it's so important to be mindful of the words that you choose to describe the events of your life. Really, you can't start saying, oh my God, I'm such a loser. Why does this happen to me? The poor me syndrome. That is so self-sabotaging. Henry Ford said, if you think you can't or you think you can, you're right. And that is it. If you think you can't do something, you're damn right you can't do it. If you think you can do it. We are made in God's image. And that creative power and that field of infinite possibilities isn't out there. It's inside. As above, so below. And when we can tap into that truth, it's powerful. We watch the synchronicities. We alter our lifestyle so that we can be clean and be active. And we realize that we're creating reality with our own perception. And the fourth universal truth that I discovered on my path was that love is the only lasting power, the only viable means, and the only sensible goal. Only love matters. And it's not just the poetic Valentine's Day type love. It's love of one another here. That we're like-minded people. We've come together to make our lives a little better so that we can go back to our family, our friends, and our workplace and make that a little better. Especially on a day like 9/11. And we've had so much conflict in our world. And I don't know if you all noticed, but ever since the solar eclipse, the world has lost its mind. And not that the world was balanced before the eclipse, mind you. But man, I mean, the news isn't putting it on because the news is whatever it is. But, you know, and I have it here and I'm not even going to read the whole thing to you. But aside from these crazy hurricanes, aside from the huge 8.2 earthquake in Mexico, there have been heat waves in certain parts of the United States going into triple digits. They dubbed it Lucifer. The news hasn't talked about that. There have been mudslides in multiple countries around the world with thousands of deaths all at the same time. There is so much going on. The earth is somewhat reacting, I think, to us. In the same way, when you get a virus or a bacteria, your body attacks it. It's how we get healthy. It sends the white blood cells to attack, and there's a battle that goes on, and then eventually, hopefully, you beat the sickness. When we're violent, and when we spill blood, and when we're prejudiced, we infect the earth with a bacteria, with a virus. And sometimes I think the earth reacts to that. And I'm not saying it's God's vengeance, and I'm not saying that everybody who died deserved to die. I can never say something like that, nor would I. But we are connected to this planet, and what we do affects it. And not just physically, but on the subtle level, our thoughts, our feelings are affecting the ether around us. It affects nature. They've had control groups where they had a plant in one room and a plant in another. Some of you may know this experiment, and I'll say it very quickly. In one, they both got the same amount of sunlight, same amount of clean water, and then one room, people go in every day and they curse